Where were you when the class of 2022 Hall of Fame induction announcement was made? Like, where were you? What were you doing?
I was driving Wilson to soccer practice.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
I know because I called you screaming.
Well, you called me, didn't leave a message. I was like, oh my gosh, Brig never calls. He'll either Marco Polo me or
Yeah,
text me.
right.
So I was like calling back while I'm on the freeway, breaking the law, by the way, because I don't have
Oh,
hands free in that car.
oh no!
So
It
I
was
had you on.
worth it, Brad.
It was worth it. Let me tell you. Let me tell you what I had to do, Brig. So I have a pop socket on the back of my phone. I
Yeah,
had it so it has like two levels, right? I had it down to the first level, and I
yeah.
put you on speakerphone and like locked you onto my seatbelt. So you're like a walkie-talkie on my
Yeah.
chest having this conversation
Oh
in a
my
car
God.
that doesn't have AC, by the way. So I had to roll the windows up
Oh
so I could hear
no!
you
On the freeway
on the
with
freeway.
Wilson in the car. Oh
Yes.
man, did I say anything inappropriate?
No, no.
Oh, good.
That's why I told you at the very beginning of the conversation. Hey, I'm
Oh,
driving Wilson to soccer practice.
oh, it's very smart to give me a heads up. Yes, this is very good. I think it's worth noting that I may have traumatized my child that day. I'm sitting there listening to the Hall of Fame announcement, and for those of you that don't know, let's just get it out of the way. The only member of the 2022 class from the what do we call it, the regular ballot? I don't know, the voted the
The
voted
traditional
in,
ballot, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, or whatever. Not the Culture Club inductees. We'll get to those in a minute, but the traditional ballot, Big Papi, David Ortiz, his royal bigness is the only one that's getting into the Hall of Fame in this class. And Brad, I just lost it, man.
You know you did. You're
I
so excited.
I wigged all the way out. I jumped up and down. I ran around my house screaming, "Yes! Yes! Yes!" I threw my hat on the ground, and my kid is going to need therapy because his bigness got in the Hall of Fame. It's just because I was excited.
She's gonna be like, I don't know what it is. There's something about the Red Sox. Not just my upbringing from my Yankee loving dad, but also like I am just like terrified of that bee.
Yeah.
That specific red bee strikes fear into my mind.
Oh man. Oh, I
That's what it's
hope that
gonna be.
doesn't get. Oh my gosh. Anyway, for those of you that don't know, like, let's just spend a minute on this. It is incredibly exciting that David Ortiz is in the Hall of Fame, right? He's this first year on the ballot. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Anytime the conversation goes where he's even discussed as a Hall of Fame potential, everybody's like, duh, of course. And that's how I feel. I was, even as a diehard Yankees fan, I was like thrilled to see Big Papi get into the Hall of Fame. What about you, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really exciting. We both last week thought he was gonna get in for sure. I do have to say this, Brig, though. It was brought up about how he was on the Mitchell report, how he
He
tested
was.
positive during spring training.
Yeah.
And he refuted it. He said that he took something over the counter that popped him positive. And Rob Manfred has come out and said that, oh, there's a chance he could have been a false positive, but we don't know. Well, then how many other guys on the list were false positives
Right.
who I don't know are potentially not going to get into the Hall of Fame or have had their names tainted because of that? I know there were a few guys who were on the list and were like, yep, yeah, I did
Like Andy
use,
Pettit, right? You're like,
yeah,
yeah,
Andy
dude.
Pettit, exactly.
Right.
He owned up to it. Um, but it kind of comes into the conversation though, like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, right? They were not voted in. And I told you in text, I said, my stance on this has softened this week.
Yeah.
Now I have to present something to you real quick. I have a mystery player who is a Hall of Famer.
Oh
Obviously not
no.
unanimous because that just doesn't happen except for one time.
Yeah, one
This
time.
this player, I'm going to cherry pick a few stats for you to help
Okay.
paint the picture that I'm trying to get with here.
Are you gonna quiz me? Okay.
Well, so this player ended with a 305 batting average, and he won an MVP, World Series champion, a whole slew of All-Star appearances. Um, he held a record for a long time, 3-time Gold Glove, 2-time batting title, and he is like I said, Hall of Famer who admitted to using amphetamines. Performance enhancing
What
drugs. We
position
saw
did
what
he play?
happened. He was an outfielder and a first baseman. Now, we saw the role that amphetamines, I feel like, played in Chris Davis's success for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
He tested
For sure.
positive, and then after that, he forgot how to play baseball, it seemed like.
Literally forgot.
Well, would you let this person in the Hall of Fame, Brig?
Was it a banned substance at the time?
It was not.
Was there a prescription for it or something like that?
No prescription.
Just
Just grabbing
like,
handfuls in the clubhouse, like everybody else did.
But everybody else, right?
Mhm.
But it was not explicitly banned.
Right.
Then you can't punish him if he didn't break
Okay.
a rule.
Okay.
Right?
Now, right. He didn't break a rule. That person was Hank Aaron.
Right.
And I feel like the same goes for at least Barry Bonds. Because
if he didn't break a rule.
He never tested positive. Yes, physically, like, and he always denied using it. But I mean, we have evidence, like, dude, you were like a freaking balloon, right?
His head size changed.
Yeah, but at the same time, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, it wasn't a banned substance at the time, right? And Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa essentially saved baseball in the late '90s. And then
100%.
Barry Bonds came on. Barry Bonds is a 7-time MVP, Brig.
I know.
3 before he even got to San Francisco, 4 more times with the Giants. And he holds the record for most home runs in Major League Baseball history.
Ever. Yeah.
Ever. And, I mean, how many people want Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame? He broke a specific rule. Right?
Yeah, he did.
Like a very specific, hard, fast rule about gambling on the game.
Yeah.
Like games that he was managing, he was betting on it. I don't care if he was betting for his team. The fact that he was betting on the game is like insane to me, especially as somebody who has gambled in the past. I'm like, you can go to great lengths to win a bet, especially if you've got that much money on it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like you can't want Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame and then say Barry Bonds doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame for A, never testing positive, and B, potentially using when it wasn't a banned substance.
These are good points, Brad.
That's kind of where I've gotten to be, even just in this last week. Because before, I mean, when you called them, like, hey, they stuck to their guns. Like, yeah, they didn't get in. But then I was like, wait a minute. Like, we're kind of a double standard here. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true. And I think it comes, for me, the waters got really muddy with the sign stealing scandal in 2017. Mm-hmm. That's when the waters really got muddy for me. Had that not occurred, I don't think they would be as muddy. That's when I reevaluated Pete Rose.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I revisited Pete Rose, honestly.
Yeah, and I get that.
And so here's what's interesting to me. This is the verbiage. This is the actual language that is used during the announcement, and this is what the Baseball Writers Association of America members and voters are instructed to critique or criticize potential players.
Or consider.
Yeah, to consider when evaluating players. I don't want to use the word worthiness, but you know what I mean? Like, whether they belong in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So, quote, based upon the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to the team or teams on which the player played. End quote. And I feel like when the dude read it off, he paused a couple of times on some key words there. He didn't emphasize them, but I just felt like it was in the air.
Right. And I understand that. And this is the big thing too, is that just going back specifically to steroids, like Bonds was never suspended, never tested positive for it. Yeah. A guy like Alex Rodriguez is a completely different case, right? Because he was suspended twice twice for it
Yes.
after it was banned. Like he probably tested
Yeah.
positive. I think he was on the Mitchell report, and then he goes and he tests positive, gets that 80-game suspension. Then he goes and tests positive again, was supposed to be gone for an entire season.
Yeah.
Like I think it was even a season and a half
It
because
was
he was the ringleader.
extensive. Yeah, he was.
And so
That book is good.
it's really good. So
Anyway.
I feel like you can't necessarily bring him to the table and be like, well, it's like, well, no, he straight up broke a rule, right? Like that's the
Twice.
integrity part with A-Rod, and that's why he'll never get in my opinion.
Right.
But the fact that I feel like Bonds was like, this is what I need to do to take myself to level the playing field, because he was that much better than everybody else. Did you see
He was.
did you see the stat about his OPS?
Mm-mm.
So I saw a graphic that said that David Ortiz's career OPS was 380. And if you turned all of Bonds' home runs into outs, his would be 384.
What?
That's insane.
Every single home run?
Every single home run into an out. He would still be higher than Papi's.
Oh, man.
That's how good of a player he was. That he leads the league all time in walks and intentional walks, because nobody wanted to pitch to him. And you can't, and you're not going to get there in the last 5-6 years of your career. They were pitching around him before. Jonathan Mullins came on the podcast while you were gone and was saying that he said, I think that he's a Hall of Famer just because he was before.
Yeah,
when he
I've
was
heard that argument so many times, and it's not wrong. He had a Hall of Fame career with Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the argument I've heard towards that is that you can't shoot a 27 on the front nine, then use your foot wedge on the back nine and consider it a good round of golf, right?
Yeah, that's a great
So
analogy. Actually.
I understand that, but at the same time, like we said, he wasn't breaking a rule at the time.
Mm-mm.
So it's really sticky.
Really
I think
sticky.
eventually he's going to get in. I think the Culture Club's going to let him in.
I think so too. Yeah, and I think that the only argument you need is that you can't tell the history of the game, can't tell the story of baseball without him. And it's true, you can't. So does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Yes. Do we need to be careful about how we do that? I still think we should be careful.
It's still a slippery slope. I'll give you that.
Yeah, and based on the words listed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, contributions to the team or teams on which they played. Character is the reason and sportsmanship is the reason Curt Schilling didn't get in. I promise you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's got to be.
It has to be.
Because otherwise it makes no sense for him not to be invited.
He did say, though, before he ever got on the ballot, I think it was the first year he was supposed to be on the ballot, he said that he didn't think he was a Hall of Famer. Dan Patrick asked him, and he said, I feel like you have one shot with guys who are supposed to be Hall of Famers. He said, if somebody asks you, is this guy a Hall of Famer, and you hesitate, he's not a Hall of Famer. That's what Curt Schilling himself said. He said, so I don't believe that I belong in the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, because he went through and listed off a bunch of guys, and there was one where he hesitated, where DP hesitated, and Schilling goes, see, he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. You had to hesitate. Like, that's an interesting approach to it.
That is interesting.
So I think he legitimately does not care that he's not in the Hall of Fame because he doesn't think he belongs there.
Well, he's gone on the record saying he gave up caring, I think, after the first year or something.
Maybe, yeah. And that might be why, is that he's just like, well, that wasn't a no-brainer, so I don't get in.
Yeah. You know what? Talk about going on the record, though. We have to revisit Roger Clemens' statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that blew my mind. Did that blow your mind? You shared it with me.
I did share it with you. Yeah, I'll see if I can get it real quick. So I did think it was funny, like some of the phrasing. So the first one, the one that I shared to you, was just the first part of his thread. He says, hey, y'all, I figured I'd give y'all a statement since it's that time of the year again. My family and I put the Hall of Fame in the rearview mirror 10 years ago. I didn't play baseball to get in the Hall of Fame. I played to make a generational difference in the lives of my family. So I feel like that's the one part of that thread of the tweet that really says it all, that he never cared about the Hall of Fame, never cared about winning championships. He was straight up about the money.
Start to finish.
If it meant taking steroids to elongate his career, he was going to do it.
Yeah.
So, but I quote tweeted it
reads
from our Twitter and said, translation, I never wanted to be part of your stupid club anyway. because that's what that felt like to me.
That's exactly right. I did it for the money. So sue me,
Yeah.
which did happen.
It did happen.
Ha!
Oh man.
Whoa!
Oh man.
Shots fired. Okay.
Let's get into next year's ballot real quick, Brig.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. Yep.
So it's a long list. There are a lot of guys. So let's read them. I'll read them off first, and then we'll get into a few notables there. First, so we have Carlos Beltran, John Lackey, Jared Weaver, Jacoby Ellsbury, your favorite.
Who?
Jacoby Ellsbury, you know him.
Who is that?
Oh, okay. We've forgotten. Anyway, Matt Cain, Johnny Peralta, Jason Worth, JJ Hardy, Mike Napoli, Aaron Hill, Bronson Arroyo and his braids, R.A. Dickey and his knuckleball, Eric Ibar, Carlos Ruiz, Ubaldo Jimenez, Francisco Rodriguez, Andrew Ethier. Is it Andrew or Andre? Did I write that down? Wrong?
You
Did I do
did
that
write
wrong?
it down anyway. Stephen Drew, Joaquin Benoit, Houston Street, Joe Blanton, Adam Lind, Jonathan Broxton, Glenn Perkins, Chad Qualls, and Jason Greeley.
It is Andre Ethier. I don't know why I put Andrew. I should have just gone straight off the list. Anyway. So first off, Brig, who is the guy? Is there anybody on that list you think is like a no-brainer? Who's gonna get in?
No, not a single no-brainer going to get in on that list for me.
I know. The one big guy who does stick out though is Carlos Beltran. Great career.
Yeah.
Great career.
Until it
also
wasn't.
a known cheater.
Yeah.
Let
me read you this list again. You're instructed to elect hall members based on.
It's going to be the beginning of the fallout from the Astros cheating scandal.
Yeah,
it's just going to be dominoes from here on out. What the voters do with Carlos Beltran, I think, will determine what happens down the road.
Yeah, it'll be a landmark thing for sure.
It sure will be, because I feel like if you're not going to put Beltran in, you can't put in Correa, Altuve, Bregman if he does have a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
So I think Astros fans are going to be paying attention very closely to Carlos Beltran from here on out.
Rightly so. We have 10 years to figure it out, so don't hold your breath.
Yeah. Yep. Another guy though is Francisco Rodriguez, K-Rod.
Mm-hmm.
He's tricky because closers have a hard time getting into the Hall because of their intermittent use. They don't appear in nearly as many games as anybody else.
Yeah, to be judged differently for sure.
They do, and this is one of the things too. I feel like with closers is that they'll have like a good stretch with the team. They'll have a year where they're just a bum. No, they're like, don't bring that guy in again.
Yeah,
and then their contract ends or they get traded to another team. Then they have 2 or 3 more great years with a new team. Yeah, and then they have another down year, right?
Exactly.
And he was one of those guys.
Mind? Yeah, I'm trying to think of that guy's name. Atlanta Braves, and then he does the crow thing, the bird pose. Freaks his name.
Craig Kimbrell.
Thank you. Yeah. My goodness. Same thing where you're like, eventually, like he was lights out constantly, and then you were like, who? Like, no. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, it happens all the time, but it'll be interesting to see if he gets in. If he does, especially in the first couple of years, it's going to be really close, I feel like.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on, is how they treat the closer there.
Well, unless they're unanimously treated.
It's never going to happen again.
The end.